Sony releasing Beyond the Spider-Verse on Father's Day weekend is not a coincidence. June 18th, 2027, the third Sunday of June, a date deliberately chosen for a movie whose entire emotional engine is a teenage kid desperately trying to keep his father alive. The people making this film know exactly what they are doing, and that level of intentionality is one of the many reasons this has become arguably the most anticipated animated movie in years. But before we get into what is coming, we need to sit with what was left behind, because Across pulled off something genuinely rare. It left its audience in a state of stunned, almost frustrated awe. Miles Morales ends the movie tied to a punching bag in the wrong universe, staring at a version of himself that became an anti-hero. The credits rolled on that image in June 2023, and fans have been living with it for nearly 4 years now. That cliffhanger only lands the way it does because of what the trilogy has been building. The first movie was Miles discovering he could become Spider-Man at all. The second was him refusing to accept that his destiny had already been written for him. And now the final chapter appears to be about something even harder, Miles having to prove against every force in the multiverse that he has the right to decide his own future on his own terms. The most significant recent update came from CinemaCon, where Sony showed up with Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and directors Bob Persichetti and Justin Thompson, and actually showed footage. Not a sizzle reel of concept art, not an animated logo. Real footage from the movie formatted for full IMAX ratio. That ratio alone is worth stopping on for a second, because Beyond the Spider-Verse is the first animated film in history being built from the ground up for premium large format screens. Every frame is being constructed with the biggest canvases on Earth in mind. For a franchise that already makes you feel like the visuals are breaking out of the screen, that commitment is staggering. What the footage showed was the film's opening scene, and it picks up at the exact second Across ended. Miles is restrained, zip-tied to a punching bag, being interrogated by the Earth 42 version of Uncle Aaron. This Aaron, also voiced by Mahershala Ali, never changed. He never walked away from crime, never had the complicated arc of the Aaron Davis we watched die trying to protect his nephew. In this universe, Aaron stayed in the life and never looked back. Miles tries talking his way out, explaining that his father is going to die in 2 days because of something called a canon event, and then the Earth 42 miles drops from the ceiling. He introduces himself coldly. He is wearing the Prowler suit. He is everything our Miles could have been if the universe had broken the wrong way. The two argue back and forth. There is even a moment where Prowler mocks our Miles for not being able to pronounce Morales the way he does, which is such a specific, strange, human detail that it says a lot about the tonal range this movie is going for. Then OG Miles charges up his bioelectric venom shock, breaks free from the restraints, and the fight begins. Two versions of the same person throwing hands in a scene that is, conceptually, the entire thesis of the trilogy made physical. Prowler is voiced by Gerald Jerome, not Shameik Moore, and that casting decision is deliberate and brilliant. These are not the same person. They were shaped by completely different worlds, and the fact that a different actor plays him makes you feel that. Lord and Miller have described the new Prowler as an exploration of who Miles might have become if he had never had his father in his life and had been raised entirely by Aaron instead. That is not a minor character question. That is the question the whole franchise has been circling around. And here is a detail that does not get enough attention. The radioactive spider that bit Miles in Earth 1610 did not come from his universe. It came from Earth 42, pulled across dimensions by Jonathan Owen's Super Collider experiment. That spider was supposed to bite the Earth 42 Miles. He was supposed to become Spider-Man. The spider ended up in the wrong universe, which means Earth 42 never got a Spider-Man. Crime took over without anyone to stop it. Jefferson Morales died without a hero to help him, and Miles grew up under Aaron's wing with no one to push him toward being better. There is a mural somewhere in Earth 42 that this version of Miles painted for his dead father. Enormous, city-sized grief with no costume attached to it. That is one of the quietly devastating details the earlier CinemaCon footage reportedly hinted at, and it reframes the Earth 42 Miles completely. He is the person our Miles was supposed to be, living the life our Miles was supposed to have. The sizzle reel shown alongside the opening scene also included a flashback sequence styled completely differently from the rest of the film. Grittier, more retro-influenced, showing a young Jeff and Aaron Davis together before their lives split apart. This is territory the Spider-Verse films have hinted at for 2 movies without ever fully exploring. In Miles's home universe, Jefferson walked away from crime and became a cop. Aaron stayed in and died for it. But what if Jefferson had made the other choice? What if the one decision that defined him had gone the other way? The movie appears to be asking that in direct visual terms, and the reason it matters so much right now is that Jeff's life is the clock the entire film is racing against. The Spot has already announced he is going going to kill him. The whole narrative of Beyond is Miles trying to stop that from happening, while Miguel's philosophy insists some tragedies simply cannot be avoided. Giving the audience a full picture of who Jefferson was before he became the man Miles grew up with is how you make every second of that countdown feel personal. Speaking of the Spot, he is the character that Across pulled off better than anyone expected, and Beyond appears to be committing fully to the evolution. He showed up in the second film as a walking visual gag, a villain so underwhelming that Miles could not even bother taking him seriously. Then the film quietly, methodically showed him absorbing dimensional energy from universe after universe until he became something genuinely terrifying. By the end, he was announcing his plan to kill Jefferson directly to Miles and vanishing before Miles could do anything about it. That transformation from punchline to existential threat is one of the best villain arcs in recent animation. What Miller has described for Beyond takes this further in a direction the franchise has never attempted. The Spot's visual design is going to evolve into a level of abstraction that is genuinely new for mainstream animation. Lord described it as taking audiences to places of abstraction they have simply never been before. The working theory, and it feels like the right one based on the trajectory of his design, is that a fully powered Spot essentially becomes a living void. Not a man with holes in his body, but something closer to a sentient collapse of borders between universes. Earlier CinemaCon footage drew comparisons to the visual language of A Space Odyssey. If the Spot's final form is pushing in that direction, the franchise might be about to deliver the most surreal villain sequence in animated film history. Kingpin is also returning, with Liev Schreiber back to voice the man who set the entire Spider-Verse crisis in motion when he activated his collider in the first film and tore a hole in reality. The sizzle reel apparently frames his return with visual imagery that echoes the Spot's dimensional effects, with the two characters appearing almost as if their stories are connected. That implication is worth sitting with. Kingpin has always been someone who tries to use other people's power for his own ends. The Spot's interdimensional abilities are exactly what a man like Fisk would want to weaponize, but the Spot has grown so far beyond anything controllable that whether these two are working together or colliding with each other adds another layer to an already dense antagonist situation. Then there is Miguel, who is one of the most genuinely complicated characters the trilogy has produced. He is not the villain, even though a lot of people walked out of Across wanting to cast him that way. He is a man who watched his universe collapse after he tried to rewrite his own tragedy, and he built an entire ideology around making sure that never happened to anyone else. He created the Spider Society because he believed someone had to make the hard calls. The problem is that his entire framework was built without accounting for Miles, who was never supposed to exist as Spidey in the first place. Miles is an anomaly, not a variant. The rules of canon events were never designed for someone who broke the pattern before the pattern could be established. If the system cannot handle the original exception, the system is broken, and Beyond is going to have to deal with that directly. Miguel appears in the sizzle reel wearing a completely different suit. Black and white, more angular, more severe than the red and blue design he wore before. This was actually hidden as an Easter egg in the background of Miguel's lab during Across, confirmed by the character designer as an intentional plant. On the rescue side of the story, Gwen has assembled a team. Hailee Steinfeld is back, and Gwen's arc across these 3 films has been about learning to stop pushing people away because she is afraid of what getting close to them costs her. The CinemaCon footage shows the group arriving in a getaway van during Miles' fight with his Earth-42 counterpart, Peter Parker, Spider-Ham with Baby Mayday in tow, Spider-Punk, Spider-Noir, and Penny Parker all showing up to pull Miles out. The team also includes 2 faces that nobody has been able to identify yet from the footage. Lord and Miller have confirmed that Beyond will introduce entirely new characters who were not in either of the previous films. Nicolas Cage's Spider-Noir, returning right now, is also timing that feels completely calculated. His live-action series arrived on Prime Video just weeks ago, which means audiences who are falling in love with that version of the character right now are going to walk into Beyond already invested in him. Spider-Punk's return is similarly well positioned, with Daniel Kaluuya appearing in official still images clearly positioned as someone with a real role rather than a cameo. Hobie was one of the biggest breakout characters from Across precisely because he was the one Spider-Person who understood from the start that Miguel's system was built on control, and having him in Miles' corner carries thematic weight the movie clearly wants to use. The most fascinating fan theory floating around right now connects back to something Miles himself threw out casually in a cross about having two cakes. Canon events, according to Miguel's framework, require a Spider-Man to experience a specific set of losses to become who they need to be. But Earth 42 Miles already lost his father. Our Miles already lost his universe's Peter and Uncle Aaron. Between the two of them, the argument could be made that the multiverse's debt has already been paid, that together they represent the loophole in Miguel's entire system. Some theories suggest the two versions of Miles eventually stop fighting and start working together to get back to Earth 1610 before the canon event clock runs out, and the idea that Miles makes this exact argument to Miguel as his way of winning the ideological battle is genuinely compelling. It would be the most Miles Morales way to solve a multiverse problem imaginable. On the production side, the directors are Bob Persichetti, who co-directed Into the Spider-Verse, and Justin Thompson, who was production designer on the first film and co-director of the second. Lord and Miller wrote the script alongside Dave Callaham, who also co-wrote Across. One unusual creative addition is live-action cinematographer Alice Brooks, brought in to handle camera work on an animated feature, which is rare and signals that certain sequences in Beyond are going to feel more grounded and intimate even as the visual style gets increasingly abstract elsewhere. That tension between raw emotional closeness and complete visual surrealism is exactly what this story needs in its final act. Lord and Miller have both said publicly that the team puts more pressure on themselves than any external force ever could, and that the entire motivation behind this film is delivering something audiences have genuinely never experienced before. Not just topping the previous two films, but creating a new standard for what animation can do emotionally and visually. The Sony Pictures Animation co-presidents went on record earlier this year saying that what they saw at the most recent internal presentation was genuinely stunning. Not the kind of thing executives say for press releases, but an actual reaction of surprise. Shaymak Moore has been telling anyone who will listen to prepare themselves for something unlike what the franchise has done before.